Good morning, you guys. It is a wet, rainy day out here today. I am outside. I've got some hot chocolate. I've got my raincoat on. We don't get too many wet, rainy days, and so this is kind of an exciting one. I had a bunch of things planned to be in the garden today, but that got changed, and we're gonna do a very quick and simple project in the garden. I made some Mexican-style hot chocolate. We didn't have all the spices that I needed for it, but still made it so much better than just normal hot chocolate. Made it with milk and a few other spices. It was so good, perfect for these rainy day weather. So today's plan though, we are going to go ahead and we're gonna plant up potatoes. I know it's probably not super exciting, but I love planting potatoes. I didn't grow any potatoes last year. I'm getting on planting potatoes about a month early right now, just because these bags of potatoes, I've got 2 bags, they were in our cabinet and they've already started to sprout. And so this year I've actually had to go through and I've had to buy potatoes. Well, I guess technically last year. Last year I had to go buy potatoes, and I didn't love buying potatoes. They taste exactly the same. I don't see a taste difference, but I just enjoy growing them. It's very satisfying to like dig into the ground and all of a sudden like unearth potatoes. Last year was the first year that I had never grown potatoes. I've done it for the last, I think like 5 or 6 years grown our potatoes, but I focused so hard on growing flowers. And so this year I'm getting to it and I'm getting early. They take a few months, like 3 to 4 months for you to be able to harvest them. You want to plant your potatoes about 3 weeks before your last frost. They don't do good with like freezing temperatures, so like before your last frost usually it starts to like warm up a little bit, and right before your last frost you might get like a light frost. So as long as you're not getting like freezing temperatures, but you can also wait till after your frost to get these planted. I'm gonna plant them early. We haven't had any like frost. We've had one night that I think hit 32 or something like that, and so I'm not too worried about it this year. It's just gonna be very, very wet. But that's okay. So we're gonna go to the vegetable garden all the way back there. I think we're gonna talk about it here for a minute, and then when it's time to plant them, I'll show you guys how to plant them, and we're gonna go all the way back there. I just don't want to I obviously don't want to go stand in the rain. So let me set up the camera and we'll go over the potatoes, the ones that I've got. We're gonna do 2 different kinds, what they need, the nutrients, sun requirements, all the things. So let me set up a camera and then we'll go over it. Okay, so we're gonna go over it really quick. I've got 2 different kinds of potatoes. This all is coming to fruition because I went to go make breakfast the other day and I saw that these had all sprouted. So we have some yellow potatoes, and then we also have some white potatoes. These are the potatoes that we eat the most. They're the most universal potatoes. They can really be used for pretty much anything. I like the yellow potatoes because they're a little bit smaller, as where white potatoes, they're quite large. There is clearly a size difference in these 2 potatoes here, and you can see, look at not going to eat this potato. And then same thing here, these ones I could still eat. I could just pop these off. But I'm gonna plant them up. So I've got 2 different varieties of potatoes here. Let's go over really quickly the anatomy of the potato. A potato is technically a tuber. It's like the same thing that dahlias grow from. They grow from tubers, and on dahlias you look for like a neck and an eye. Well, potatoes you just look for the eyes, and from the eye, these are called stolons, and this is where the potato like foliage growth and all the roots come from. So this is where everything comes from, is from these little eyes right here, and you can see there's another eye popping up right here. Popping in right there. There's a whole bunch of eyes all over this potato. If I wanted to, I could go in and I could cut these potatoes anywhere that there's an eye, and what'll happen is it'll grow all of these little stolons, and from those stolons you get all of your foliar growth, and then you'll also get your roots. So I'm not gonna do that. I've never done that. I've never cut my potatoes. I just plant them whole. I usually end up buying seed potatoes, but I've got potatoes that are ready to grow. Usually you don't want to try growing these because most potatoes are sprayed with a growth inhibitor. You can totally do it. Obviously they do grow, but they are sprayed with a growth inhibitor, meaning that they usually tend to grow a little bit slower, a little bit less. They spray it on there so that way in like transport your potatoes don't start sprouting, or in your cabinet your potatoes don't sprout. These we've had for a very, very long time. We don't eat a whole lot of potatoes, but when we do eat potatoes, we like to have them, and so I try to store them for quite some time, and these are obviously ready to get going. They all look like this. Like, this one is probably the most severe, but they're all ready to go. they want to be in the ground, and so I'm gonna let them. They're starting to get a little bit softer, and so that's how I know they're not, these ones are not ready to cook. They're putting all of their energy from the tuber itself into its growth. It's ready to start producing, and what'll happen is from this, it's gonna start shooting out little tubers into here. So you'll get your foliar growth, your root growth, and then off of that root growth, you're gonna get little tubers that start forming, and then that's gonna be your new potatoes. From each potato, you should be able to yield 3 to 5 potatoes, sometimes even more. I've had up to like 7 or 8 potatoes. I think that's pretty rare. I would say 3 to 5 is pretty common. So you take your 1 potato. If I had cut this, I could just cut it off. I would leave it for a couple days, let it heal over, and then I could plant it, and that would grow. And then like right here, there's another eye that's starting to form up, and then this would start doing the exact same thing as this. And so you could cut it, and you could do all of your little eyes that you wanted to do. I don't have the time to let them heal over for about a day or two. I want to get these planted in the ground. That's why I'm out here in the rain. Found them, and they're ready to go. So I really think that potatoes are a really good crop for new people. It's a very short yield. It's a short growing time to be able to get a big yield and a very exciting yield. And so I think growing potatoes, if you're a new gardener, is very, very exciting and a really good crop for new beginners. You can start them a little bit earlier, and you get quite a big yield from it. The only thing is you don't know what's happening until you start seeing the signs on the top, what you're looking for on the top. I'm gonna go over this all again once I harvest these potatoes in a few months. But what you're looking for on the top is you're looking for all of your foliar growth, and it's gonna be so beautiful, and you're gonna get potato vines everywhere that you plant them. And then they should flower. They don't have to flower, but they should flower. The flowering just is a sign that it's a really happy and healthy potato, and that it's doing all this work under the ground. You can cut them, you can leave them, whatever you choose. We tend to just leave them if they do flower. I've only had them flower about 3 times on me, and I tend to just leave them. The potato flowers themselves make a berry, and the berry can be kind of poisonous. So if you do cut those off, you know, you're getting rid of the poison that you're not gonna have to deal with in the garden. And then what'll happen is all of your foliar growth will start to die back. And once your foliar growth is about 75% dead in the summertime, then you know that your plants are ready, and you should have a ton of healthy tubers. What you can do, instead of dumping your entire bucket out, you can just kind of like dust the top soil off, and you can kind of lightly dig and see if you can find any healthy sized potatoes. If you don't see any healthy sized ones, I would just let it go a little bit longer. They're usually about 1 inch under the soil. I've had ones that kind of like come up and they start to like peek from the soil just a little bit. I go back and I do cover them with soil. You don't want your potatoes to be touching sunlight. You don't want sunlight on them. They can become very poisonous. Potatoes will turn green if they're exposed to sunlight, or if they're exposed to too hot of temperatures or too cold of temperatures. And if your potatoes are green, they create a poison, and it's not good. So you don't want to eat them. So it's very important to make sure your potatoes stay fully covered. So if you look in wherever you're growing them and you see your potatoes coming out and they're not green, cover them up so that way you don't get, you know, poisoned by your potatoes. When you're trying to find a spot to plant your potatoes, you want to make sure that you found a spot that is full sun. You don't want to put these anywhere that's shady. Minimum 6 hours of sun. That's very, very important to be able to get nice and big, healthy sized potatoes, to get the size potatoes you want. Otherwise, you're gonna get little teeny tiny tuber potatoes, and that's not really what we're going for here. So minimum 6 hours of sun, and it's best to grow it in a container. I've tried growing it in the ground, and I've tried growing it in the containers. In the container is going to yield you the best shaped potatoes and the like easiest to be able to harvest your potatoes. Growing them in containers is the best. You can pick up very large nursery containers from your local like nurseries. They've got excesses, and they usually will sell them to you quite cheap. And that's what we've been growing our potatoes in, and we grow them in bagged soil. And you want to make sure that your soil is slightly acidic. They do prefer that. Usually about a 5.8 to a 6.5 acidity on your soil. If you don't know, that's okay. Just grow it in lofty soil. We use the Happy Frog Fox Farm potting soil, and that stuff has worked really, really well. Potatoes are very hungry. They're very, very hungry, so you need lots of fertilizer, lots of good, rich, healthy soil. You don't want to go with old soil, and I've found that growing them in the ground, you have to get a pitchfork, you got to disturb the ground, and then it's kind of a pain, because then your potatoes are also super misshapen. If there's rocks or big pieces of clay, it's going to grow around them, so you get weird shaped potatoes. So I found growing it in potting soil in containers really is the best, and that's how you're going to get the best results for your potatoes. Your safest bet to guarantee really good success is to not plant potatoes the same time I'm planting potatoes. You want your daytime soil temperature to be about 55 degrees. Mine is not 55 degrees, but I'm getting it done early just because I have these potatoes. If it doesn't work, I'm not out anything because these potatoes are already going to be garbage. And I was planning on, in about a month's time, buying some seed potatoes. You can get seed potatoes from pretty much anywhere, or you can try your luck with store-bought potatoes. We always buy seed potatoes, which are just potatoes that don't have any like spray chemical on them to inhibit your growth. So it's up to you which route you want to go. It's not a big deal either way. We usually just go the seed potato route because it guarantees a little higher rate of success. I looked up a little fact because I know what I do in my growing zone, and I've got so many people watching that are watching in other growing zones that I wanted to give you guys kind of the best success. So I've got this little blurb that I found. It's from the Almanac Farmer, which I love looking on the Almanac for any advice. And it says, in cooler regions, early maturing potatoes are usually planted in mid-April. In warmer regions, planting time ranges from September to February. In Central Florida, gardeners plant potatoes in January. In Georgia, they plant in February. So if you're in Florida, I'm gonna say get your potatoes planted. And if you're in Georgia, you got a little time to wait to get your potatoes in the ground. I'm in California, zone 9A, and I usually wait about 3 to 4 weeks from about this time to be planting my potatoes. So they're going in a little bit early for me, but that's gonna be okay. Like I said, we're just doing it. We're just gonna wing it. It's an experiment, and if I don't get any potatoes, I'll just buy potatoes from the store. But I do expect some pretty good success from these guys if they're already wanting to grow and they're putting on some really good growth. And these are really good sized potatoes to like be trying with. Usually seed potatoes are very small. So this will be a good experiment. I've got 2 big containers. I think only one of them is full of soil. It's the one I grew my tomato in last year, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to top it off with some soil, and I'm going to add lots of good amendments into it. So with me planting them, and we still have the chance of a frost on our forecast, because our last frost isn't for a while, so we still have a chance that we could get some frost. If I start to see some good foliar growth on this, anytime that I see a frost on my temperature, on my 10-day forecast, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover them with a frost cloth. I want to give these guys as big of a success as possible. I don't want to immediately start killing off the foliar growth. So it's very important. They're very frost tender, and so growing them now is kind of a risk, like I said. So that's why if I get anything that says 32 at night or below 32 or anything even really close to 32, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cover them with a frost cloth just to give it a little bit of insulation so I don't have to worry about my potatoes dying. So there are 3 different types of potatoes. There are early, mid, and late potatoes, and that all depends on when you harvest them because they need more time. The best way to be able to identify which ones you guys have though is just look up the days to maturity of your potato. The 2 that I have, they can be categorized as early or mid. It all depends on the grower and who's growing them and what they how they grow them. And so this is when it starts to get a little tricky for new gardeners, and so it's not really something that I even pay attention to. I just plant my dang potatoes and then I'll go harvest them when the tops all die. That's your best bet. If you care how long it's going to take, then look up mid, early, late, and all that stuff. There's a whole bunch of like hogwash that goes into it, and backstories and all these things, and okay, well this one takes 55 days, this one takes 110 days, this takes 130 days. And so if you care about those things, look it up. We're gonna wait for the train. We're going to bury them so the roots here are down like this. So they're gonna get planted down, and they're gonna get planted about twice as deep. So the hole will be this big plus another potato, so the hole is gonna be pretty big hole, about that deep is how far we're gonna plant this down. And then this will be able to produce its growth up and its roots to be able to grow nice and down, and we should be able to get lots of big, healthy, happy potatoes. So let's go to the vegetable garden now. I gotta go set up an umbrella because the rain has just started to come down hard. Let me go set up an umbrella and then we'll get these planted really, really quickly. This is where we're gonna grow our potatoes. This container has been nothing but spinach for you know, most of the winter growing season, and that's okay. Let me take this hood off. So I'm set under an umbrella even though it's pouring out right now. Massive umbrella. We're gonna take the spinach out. We're not eating the spinach, and the slugs are starting to enjoy it, and so I would rather get rid of it and give it to the chickens who actually enjoy it. This was a spinach called Flamingo. I'd never grown it. It says 37 days to maturity. I didn't love the flavor of the spinach. I love spinach, but this one's got to go, so we're going to pull this out. The Flamingo spinach was not it for me, and the chickens are going to be extremely happy with having this spinach. They just love vegetables. And so this is gonna go to the girls really quickly. And then all of this soil here is brand new, and so I don't have to worry about feeding this too much. Okay, they're gonna love that spinach. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop our holes in here. I have less of these bigger potatoes, so I'm gonna put the bigger potatoes in this terracotta pot. I have 4 of them, which is honestly probably a little bit too many for this container, but that's gonna be okay. You know, they probably would be happier with a little more room, but they're just not gonna have it, okay? So this is gonna get set in here, just like that, twice as deep, cover it up, and bam, we have our first potato planted. We're gonna spread these out kind of evenly. And like I said, this soil was just put in here not too long ago when I planted the spinach. And so it's all brand new soil, not anything that I'm super worried about. If it was old soil, like in the other container that I'm gonna bury the other potatoes in, then I would probably think about replacing all of it. I'm such a terrible person, terrible gardener, and I'm probably still not going to replace all of that other soil. I'm probably just going to top it off because it's wet. I want to go inside, but I want to get these planted. I just know that the spinach here hasn't used all of the nutrients from the soil because it's such a large reservoir, and the roots only went down a couple inches. I'm digging down and I'm not even seeing any roots at all. So look at these potatoes, happy and healthy. There we go. These are going to be big potatoes, and there should be a lot of potatoes in here. This, like I said, is probably over full of potatoes. I probably should have just done, 2 potatoes, maybe 3 at most. We're going to go with 4. We're going to push it to the limit. I've done that before, and it's been okay. You just get maybe slightly smaller potatoes, not by too much though, and so I think it's kind of worth it. This hole nice and dug. And let's pop our last potato in here. Look at, so this is where all of our roots are coming from, and then this is some growth. So this one is gonna take off super fast. Pop this down in there. Oh, how exciting. You guys see the heat coming off of this bed? It's nice and warm soil. So let's go ahead and move to the next spot where we're going to plant our last little potatoes. So this is our white potatoes, and the other one is going to be our yellow potatoes. So let's go get those planted now. Okay, so this is where I grew some Roma tomatoes at, and I think that I don't think we're going to get anything else from this. I see some worms in here, which is good. Good sign. Healthy soil, happy soil. But this has to come out. We got lots of Romas from this, and this tomato plant has totally, completely tapped every resource out of here. While I don't have a place currently to be putting all of this soil, I think I'm going to try to shovel some of it out, and then I'm going to top it off with some new healthy soil, and then I'm going to come in with some fertilizer. I don't have any on hand at this current moment, but I will be picking up some here very, very soon. And so when I pick up my new fertilizer, I'll come in and I will feed these potatoes because I am all out of fertilizer, and these guys, like I said, are very heavy eaters, and they need lots of nutrients. So let's scoop out some of the soil really quickly. We have had rain for days on end, and so it's crazy to see some really dry soil in here. We've had our irrigation turned off, and so that's really funny. I'm seeing dry soil. Not something I thought that I would be seeing at this current moment. We've had rain for days and days. So now that I do have the soil all pulled like this, I'm just gonna dump these potatoes in here and kind of spread them out evenly. Because this, once it gets covered with soil, is actually gonna be plenty deep enough for these potatoes. So again, this is probably overkill on the number of potatoes that we're planting here, but that's gonna be okay. It should be fine. It'll be fine. And now I'm just gonna cover this up with some soil, and then that should be some good nutrients for them to get started and have a good kickoff, but they will need more fertilizer throughout the growing season. So let's fill this up with soil. Whew. Okay, now that I'm thoroughly wet, I'm back under the gazebo. We got those potatoes planted, which I am so excited about. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Planting potatoes is so easy, you guys can see it takes just seconds to get it done. While there's no instant impact in the garden or in the vegetable garden, it's still so worth it, because once those days of maturity are up and you're able to harvest your potatoes, it is so exciting to dig in the ground and see what happened. It's not like tomatoes or other vegetables where you see it happening and you can see how big they're getting. You have no clue. And so it's kind of a surprise. So that's why I really love growing potatoes in the ground, or in containers technically. I just think it's so worth it. So if you're a new gardener, this is the one to give it a try. If you're a seasoned gardener and you haven't done it in a while, I highly recommend getting back into growing potatoes. They don't take up too much space and you can get a pretty good yield from them. That will probably be enough to last us the entire year. We're just 2 people and we don't eat a crazy amount of potatoes. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I'm gonna go back inside. I'm probably gonna make myself another hot chocolate because this one is all gone and it was so good. So I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye guys.